Welcome, Vinita. Thank you for joining me at the Conscious Development Fireside Chat. And thank you for making time, given everything that's going on. So the focus of these chats is to have a conversation with members of our community that are doing incredible work in the areas of leadership, diversity, equity, inclusion, belongingness, well-being, coaching, etc., and are passionate about making a difference in their areas of focus. Our selection of topics is one that impacts businesses, our personal lives, and interpersonal dynamics. And we believe that our whole self is an amalgamation of all. So the focus of today's conversation is women as mentors. And as you and I have talked about for a long time now, in my personal work at Conscious Development as well, that we find that mentorship is a very vital part of our working life. And it creates avenues for safety, knowledge share, builds a sense of feeling understood and feeling like we belong. So on that note, my first question to you is, what are your thoughts on having women as mentors as a necessary aspect of organizations and communities?
Oona, thank you for having me. Firstly, let's get into it straight away. It's really important to have a mentor in your life from personal experience. And I think today's generation is possibly being the most open to have mentors today. I've also seen some reports that almost 60% number of women or more in India have never had a formal mentor. Right. And a lot of women want a mentor.
Right.
And I think that while it's not important whether you have a female mentor or a man, or a male mentor, but I think women in leadership positions in companies can offer guidance to young women early in their career, and even who are, somewhere halfway in their career. People naturally find mentors in their workplace, but everybody isn't so fortunate. So creating a women's mentorship program provides every female employee the opportunity to be offered and to accept guidance.
Right.
So for me, I think having women as mentors and also having a formal mentorship program is really, really important.
I agree with you, and there's you are definitely someone that I look at for guidance and for check-ins, because it's undoubtedly important that we learn from each other, and there's enough to show for how much experience and the value of experience that can be shared. And you're absolutely right. I found that people are more open to it. Women are more open to it. Yet it's not a very common practice as yet. Organizations are formally building mentorship programs into their spaces. But are they, the question always follows to say, is it making the impact we wanted to make? Is it a coaching session, or are you truly connecting with the person that you are mentoring? And is there safety in that space, or is it only a knowledge transfer? I think that balance is really
important. And I think, Oona, that, there are, it is basically, the most important thing in the relationship is the building of trust.
Right.
Right. The job of a mentor is to listen actively, to be encouraging, to identify the goals, etc. And mentors start as early as when you're children. You find your first mentor possibly in your older brother, sister, or your mother, or your father.
Right.
Sometimes even amongst your teachers, if you're lucky enough, to have a mentor as a teacher.
Right.
So I think mentor-mentee relationships are really special. And also I think a mentor learns a lot from a mentee as well. So if it comes to learning, it's a two-way relationship.
Right.
I mean, you learn so much from each other.
And that's when there's the most to gain, when there's real value emerging out of that relationship. And you actually grow to be very fond of one another and enjoy each other's presence, and those moments where you get to be sort of like a mirror to the other person in the case of when you're mentoring someone. You mentioned having, early on when you started, you mentioned your own experiences around mentorship. Would you be comfortable sharing maybe a highlight of?
Yes, I will. In my adult life, uh, halfway through my life, possibly, not halfway, say, around 30s or so, I needed mentors. For them to give me, for them to encourage me, to build a sense of worth. In not as much that I didn't feel worthy, but actively pointing out your positive strengths and pushing you to leverage your strengths. Those are the things that mentors do. But there comes an experience to my mind when I was really very young in school in 8th grade, and you changed your subjects in 8th grade, and in the 9th grade we were offered a choice of two awful subjects and physical education. And the boys were being offered physical education, but the girls were not. And it was really a dilemma for me. And I don't know whom I discussed this with. Was it my father? Or was it one of the teachers? It could also be one of my friends.
Yeah.
But I do remember being told that, listen, the least you can do is that gather up your courage and go and speak to the school principal. And it wasn't in those easy in those days. Our principal was a gentleman called Mr. Kapoor. He was really an amazing guy. Anyway, I gathered my guts being given this advice, and I went and met him. And he said to me that, this is the HSC curriculum. I can't change it for one girl.
Right.
I mean, this is what it's been for years. Phys ed has never been offered to girls. And so, he said, I can't just change it for you. And he left it at that, but he gave me this look. Anyway, so I went back feeling quite morose, had a conversation, and was told that, listen, if he said he can't change it for you, try and see if there are other girls around you who might also want to do phys ed. So the next thing was, to gather up courage and go around asking girls that, hey, do you want to do phys ed or do you want to do higher Hindi? And I can't remember what else it was. I managed to get about 8 girls who were saying that, we'll do it with you. And this was on a lot of pushing and prodding.
Right.
That, you can do this and you should do it if you think you would be better in phys ed, get better marks, your overall grade is going to be better. And all those things were true. And, I have to hand it to this principal of ours, Mr. Kapoor. I went to him with, I think, 6 or 8 girls. He actually had the syllabus changed for us.
Oh, wow.
And I went to do physical education. And it was only on advice of, an older, a teacher, my father, my friends, who pushed me into, hey, let's do this, and you can do this, So I think mentorship is important. I learned that very early on. The gender angle of it and mentorship angle.
And what a subtle experience of mentorship, right? It was guidance in the right direction. It was the proposal of an idea that then sort of in actually, if we look at it, sort of changed the landscape of what girls study at that time within a certain framework of education in India. So that's coincidentally my highlight mentor story is also from school. I had a wonderful principal, Mrs. Ramamurthy. She's no more, but she was she just sort of defied all assumptions of principals in boarding schools. One imagines someone really strict and really tough, and she what I learned from her, and I think I have always admired, is she asked questions which you very rarely find in a mentor-mentee relationship. She, by default, I mean, she's a principal. She just sort of plays the mentor role, but we grew very close. And when I did something that perhaps was a little unconventional for a boarding school setting, or asked a question, she always asked me why I wanted to do that. And the answer sort of revealed itself, and the direction revealed itself, and what was right and wrong, and that differentiation also sort of emerged very naturally. So I agree with you. I think you'd said earlier, it's intentional listening, and then to add to that, asking questions and asking that right question to really understand why someone is driven to doing what they are doing, and supporting them in that.
Oona, also as a mentee, to learn very quickly what it is that your mentor is trying to tell you, to show initiative and follow through.
Yeah.
Following through is really important. I mean, it's the reason to have a mentor. And then, of course, managing the relationship and things like that. But even as a young girl in 8th grade, I listened, I trusted, um, I learned quickly, and I followed through. And it led to a great result for me. The next 3 years, I had physical education as a subject.
Right. What a wonderful story. And very often I think in even in women spaces that say focus on women entrepreneurship or women leadership, we find that that we there are some assumptions that women should mentor women or men should mentor men. And I wonder what are your thoughts on perhaps the positive and the challenges when women mentor women, or should mentorship be more of a mixed bag in terms of merit and experience based regardless of gender?
I think we can't conclude that men's leadership may be more powerful or more important than women. At the same time, I think when you're choosing your mentor, there are specific reasons why you choose your mentor. And many times gender doesn't come into play at all. But there are clear that there are gender differences. They do exist. And I mean, the word we should use is complementary, maybe not different. And I personally feel that one should choose um, your mentor depending on what it is that you are looking for. What is it that you're looking for? What is it that you see in your mentor? I wouldn't want to say that you must choose a woman or you must choose a man, but I do realize that there are certain things that only a woman mentor can help you with. The differences that exist in an organization for a woman. But then on the other hand, we have such a few women at on the top positions. So you are by necessity, in any case, choose male mentors.
Right.
But in my mind, when you depend on someone for trust and advice, the first thing that you need to see is that the person you turn to, whether it's a professor, a friend, a family member, the importance of that mentor, the person who's going to guide you, direct you, shape your situation, future and the future opportunities for a better. You have to. I think there are many factors that go into it, and I don't think male or female is important.
Right. Right. I think it's also largely about one is it's about reframing why we are there, and then there's always a natural chemistry that one tries to find in that relationship to see whether you feel understood and not, and that also largely falls on the mentor then to be able to create that frame for and hold that space to be able to have that cross sharing. And I agree with you. I don't think it should be it's necessarily bound by gender, and yet there are so many instances where especially I think in the case of women, where women are mentored by other women also because of perhaps certain shared experiences or certain challenges, right? I mean, through COVID, multitasking or managing kids, family, work, etc. This is a shared experience that I wish was shared more equally, and perhaps is in a lot of homes by men and women, but largely becomes a shared experience basis gender. And when this does happen, are there necessary attributes that women mentors should consider when mentoring other women, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think as when a mentee considers certain attributes and looks at somebody to be a mentor, I think we also should absolutely look at what is it that we can provide to our mentees. I mean, it's one of the most powerful development strategies ever devised. So I definitely would you need to see whether you're going to be an effective mentor, because it requires more than just common sense. It
Yeah.
requires being able to, a partnership, to be able to demonstrate a number of, specific, to be able to identify certain skills that you may be able to help with, to enable learning, to enable change to take place. So all these things, I think, one needs to look at, because quite often what happens is that while you may want to do it, you may not be the right person for it. You may be able to recommend somebody else as well. A mentor should be able to inspire the mentee as well, provide corrective feedback, open doors. So if you are able to do all this for your mentee, of course, that's what you need to look at. I mean, can you provide all this for your mentee?
Right. And yeah, real honesty in that opportunity, because as a mentee experiences a mentor, they will possibly replicate that relationship when they become mentors. So there's so much power in that, not only what they are receiving, but also everything that they learn, and then you replicate and reuse and reuse. And if it's perhaps not the best style or the best format of that relationship, then that negative impact can also roll over, just as the positive impact can roll over as well.
Absolutely, because in today's day and age, everybody's short on time. So are you willing to give your time to somebody who matters to you, and you will have developed a relationship with them for life? It isn't something that lasts just a few years. Sometimes it begins before their professional career and right through the professional career. And many times, depending on the age difference, also post, their professional career. So it's someone with whom you develop a long-term relationship, and that's centered around building the mentee's growth and development. And I think you need to be very sure that you can provide, all those things to a mentee.
Right. Well, I am going to take that as a compliment for you making the time to share your thoughts, because there's a great deal of value in learning through conversation, learning around topics that are a very integral part, but is not spoken about, and or at least not shared as widely as one can, because everyone has different approaches to the idea of mentorship, and yet it matters so much and is so critical, especially at a time like this that we are in, which we really don't really have much of an end in sight in terms of how things are going to sort of unravel. But I really appreciate you making the time and sharing your thoughts with us. And it's always a pleasure to see you. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you as well. Thank you. It was great to speak about some of these things.
Absolutely. Thank you.